Hey everybody, welcome back to the Sonic Chronicle. My name is Owen, and today I am taking a look at the new Voice of Baceprot EP. They have recently released a 5-track EP called Transisi. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly because it is Indonesian, and it is the Indonesian word for transition. Speaking of transitions, that one was pretty good, I suppose. Anyway, Voice of Baceprot are an Indonesian metal band comprised of three young Muslim women who perform in their hijabs. They've received an endorsement by Vans. So they are performing on stage in their hijabs with really, really sweet kicks as well. So that's pretty cool. I first caught wind of Voice of Baceprot last year watching some Glastonbury footage. They performed at Glastonbury, and I really liked the cut of their jib, and I went back and I listened to all of their stuff. They've released quite a bit of music up to this point, and Transisi is, I suppose, the most recent release. Transisi, as I said, is the word for transition. So this is, I suppose, in some ways to spark maybe a little bit more maturity in terms of their sound or in terms of what they're going for over the course of their career. That said, their previous stuff has been relatively socially and politically charged in a lot of ways as well, which this album this EP really doubles down on. Before we get into the review though, please do consider liking this video. Please leave me comments in the comments section over the course of this video as well. And of course, subscribe to the channel to see more of my videos drop directly into your subscriber feed so that you can stay entirely up to date. So this review I'm going to do in the same manner as the way that I did the From Zero review and the Taylor Swift review and so on, right? This is going to be me putting the song titles up on screen and then talking about them as well, because sadly I cannot play any clips because YouTube, analysis and music review doesn't really go hand in hand. Anyway, the first track on this EP is called Mighty Island, and this really does set down, I suppose, a marker of what to expect from this EP over the next, I believe, 20 or so minutes. Or maybe even less, because some of the songs are about 2.5 minutes long. None of the songs are very long. Mighty Island is probably the longest. I think it's about 3 minutes 50 seconds in length. But it thunders out of the gates. There's a bass intro, and their bass player Widi is unbelievable, unreal across all of their music. Bass is a strong suit throughout this EP and throughout their discography as well. Widi is, in my opinion, probably the star of the show, frankly. It's very bouncy in terms of its performance, but then the big guitars come in then as well, and it really is an opportunity then for Firda, the guitar player, to bring in her riffs over the top of it as well. Her vocals are very strong, really cool vocal lines that really seem to pull from her own culture as well, which is great. And as a result of that, in some places it sounds like it's quite Thule, because Maynard is an unreal singer, but I think really based on what Tool do and I suppose the tribal nature of some of their music, and I don't mean to be disparaging in any capacity or to speak incorrectly about different cultures or what have you, but it really kind of seems like those are similar vibes as to what Voice of Baceprot are doing here. In the middle section then as well, Widi shines. Amazing bass player, as I said, and there's a lovely composed tapping section in the solo that is carried in the background by the bass. So it's really Ferda and Widi really combining their skills here to create something that's just really unreal, really valuable in terms of what they're doing. Of course, then as well, the drums also do have their time to shine. There's like really intricate stuff in there as well. That there's a strong snare on the one, or on the one end, and then back on the three. So bap bap, bap bap, kick bap, bap bap, kick bap, kick. Anyway. You'll listen to it to yourself and you'll hear what I mean. Yes, then there's a very understated solo in the middle section, back into the main riff, and that's the end of the song. It's a really good song, but not their strongest, in my opinion. There's a lot of strong elements here, but they don't quite all come together necessarily, which is unfortunate. But, again, not a bad song, not an awful song in any stretch. There's just elements of it that don't quite work alongside one another. Second song on the EP is called Renegade Sheep. This one is relentless, right? From the get-go, the riffs in here are absolutely relentless. Really leans into the Metallica influence, and possibly even elements of Killswitch Engage and Slipknot in here as well. Many of the lyrics on this song, and I suppose across the EP as well, are in English, but of course English is not their first language. But they kind of very easily and very quickly slide between Indonesian and English as well, which is a skill in and of itself. What is excellent about this song, though, is that in terms of the backing vocals, they have some really nice choral stings in this song as well, and the production of them is absolutely unreal. Absolutely beautiful production of both the lead and the backing vocals. The middle section then comes in, but it does something that they have leaned on a few times in the past across a number of their songs in the past. So they do like a call and answer vocal part. So they have the "Who's afraid? Not me. Who's afraid? Not me," which is grand. But I would like to hear maybe something a little bit different, and I suppose a move away from that. It's not something that will always work, and it is possibly an element that they shouldn't be using again for a while, right? At least not for the next EP at the very least. You don't want that kind of thing getting stale and just being like, oh, well, here's the typical Voice of Baceprot thing where they just do that call and answer thing. It's not damning, but it's certainly not something that they should be overusing in any capacity. That middle section then leads into the outro and the ending. Again, it's short. I think it's about 2.5 minutes or so. Doesn't wear out its welcome. And that is something that Voice of Baceprot actually do very well, and maybe something that could have been done on Mighty Island a little bit more, right? Understanding how much to put into a song and when to reel it back and when to end it. So typically they do that really well. Maybe not so much on Mighty Island. Track 3 on the EP is called Put the Gun Down. This is something this was, I suppose, a single that they had released prior to the EP coming out. I think Mighty Island might have been released as well. As the name suggests, anti-war song. Again, Widi here is absolutely excellent. In places, it feels a bit like a baby metal song. The vocal parts, they all really, really shine. Shows a lot of versatility here. Firda even gets a bit gravelly in some of the parts. There's a bit of growling, which I was very, very, very interested in. The middle section of, the chorus section of "Put the gun down, put the gun down," and then the vocal, the backing vocal kicks in of "Oh." I might not be getting that entirely correct there, but that's the idea of it, right? And it's just so well produced. The solo is excellent as well. It has elements of and shades of Silvera by Gojira. So if you know Gojira's music, if you know that particular song, you'll get a sense as to what I mean by that. But again, well worth a listen to you or by you as well. And then there's the middle vocal part, and the outro. Reminds me of like some Zeppelin, like Sabbath era stuff, with some of the decisions that were made. So, we've got, new meets old in terms of metal and influence here as well. It's not my favorite song, but it is, again, still a very, very strong metal song. Track 4 of the 5-track EP, Madness of the Present Century. This is like if Rage Against the Machine had James Hetfield as its riff writer. Okay, so again, this seems like it's going to be a protest song. Again, that's what Rage did best. And what really struck me was how in the chorus, I think it's chorus part, there was, I suppose, a resemblance to something that Horselips would have written. For those of you that don't know, Horselips are an Irish band that were around in I suppose, the 70s and primarily the 70s, actually. Their career was about 6 years, but they kind of had a lot of different images, and they almost broke America and so on. Unbelievable story. If you don't know the Horselip story, I recommend you go and look at that. I think that the documentary was called Return of the Dancehall Sweethearts, I think is what it was called. But yeah, unreal story for Horselips. That aside, I was very intrigued that there was something there that sounded like it was something that Horselips could have come up with. which just goes to show, I suppose, the breadth of influence, but also in some ways, I suppose, the overlap between the sounds that some of the cultures have, because Horselips are kind of like an Irish trad rock, trad metal band, and even between like Irish and Indian vocals, there is similarity there in how we perform, and I wonder if maybe there's some overlap there with Indonesian. I don't know. Again, it's just something that crossed my mind. The middle section then is heavily tool coded, but it could just be the way that the bass is in that mix. And then back into the Rage and Metallica style riffing. The outro is good feedback outro, gives a real sense of letting this entire thing just hang in the air. Again, probably my favourite song on the EP. I think it's a real gem. And then to finish off track 5 on the EP, The Other Side of Metalism. This one really gives me big Megadeth, Dave Mustaine vibes in terms of the guitar playing and in terms of its vocal and parts. Particularly in the intro vocal. Then the main vocal line kicks in. Big difference. And those differences really make it stand out and really or show off, I suppose, the impact. Now, the riffs and changes remain in the same Megadeth style, but the vocals do change throughout the track. The drums on this track as well are relentless. They're not blast beats, but they're not far off. Even in the middle section that is there, the timing and the tightness is unbelievable. So again, I would encourage you to go and have a listen and pay attention and have an ear out for those different things there. And that is it for Voice of Baceprot's Transisi. Overall, as an EP, as Voice of Baceprot have done to date, they have really worn their influences on their sleeves, but they do enough to differentiate themselves from those reference points, I think. They're great at writing big songs with loads of riffs and parts that fit into a sub 3-minute song, including a guitar solo, including a middle section. As I mentioned before, I think that the call and answer thing is getting maybe a little bit stale, but that's more of a criticism for me. If someone were new to Voice of Baceprot, they wouldn't know necessarily the history and the discography, and would maybe just enjoy it as another element to their songs. Sometimes, though, as mentioned on Mighty Island, maybe there might be too many elements that are included there. There's a lot to be said for someone in the studio just taking a step back and saying, actually, no, this doesn't actually need another different section or another element here. So something that they typically do well, and maybe just fell down a little bit on Mighty Island. Speaking of being in the mix, the production's unreal across the entire EP. As mentioned, I love Widi's bass playing. I think that they are the real star of the show here. Again, one man's opinion. I think the Firda is really growing as a vocalist. The variety of sounds that she's able to get across the EP, across different tracks, is really commendable. But I think that she really shines in the operatic, really melodic sections, almost like Lacuna Coil in some ways. And Use, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. Her drumming is so solid throughout. Right, there's nothing crazy flashy, but does bring a complexity at times to really drive and support Widi's bass playing. Final thoughts. As a band, I think the Voice of Baceprot are really going from strength to strength, and we're getting that little bit closer to them finding their own identity as a band. As I mentioned before, really wears their influences on their sleeves, but they're really trying to break away from that over the course of this EP. I don't think that this is a perfect release, but it's excellent. It's absolutely excellent, and you shouldn't sleep on this. I think that you should give Transisi a listen at your earliest convenience. And that is it. That is Transisi, the review by Voice of Baceprot. If you like this video, please do go ahead and hit the like button, as I said before. If you have comments, if you disagree with anything that I spoke about here, leave me a comment in the comments section. And of course, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of this kind of stuff drop directly into your subscriber feed. But for now, we will leave it there, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.